If you love the Denver Broncos, then go ahead and subscribe and help us reach 13,300 subscribers. The next milestone here at the Broncos Breakdown. We're 57 subs away, so let's get it done today. The 2023 NFL Draft is 2 weeks away from today. Now, it's really 15 days away for the Broncos because they do not have a first-round pick. What up, Russell Wilson and Sean Payton? But a new ESPN article came out recapping the latest draft rumors, buzz, nuggets of information, all that good stuff for all 32 teams. So we're going to see what they said about the Broncos. So, first up, let's see what they said in regards to Denver trading up in the draft, right? Can they get back into round number 2? Round number 1 is a long ways away from pick 67, but round 2 is not very far away. Now, here's what Broncos ESPN beat reporter Jeff Legwold said. Broncos general manager George Paton has said the team would consider ways to get more picks, but any move up would likely require trading a starter or future first or second round picks, and the team has not shown much indication to do either of those things. Coach Sean Payton then said at the league meetings the Broncos did not intend to trade any receivers. So they are most likely to open their draft right where they are now in the third round. So Denver, of course, waiting until pick 67, their first of 5 picks. And George Paton at the end of last year's draft said, we expect to get more picks. What he didn't expect was to have to trade picks away to get a new head coach because the one he hired was an absolute and complete utter fraud. So that might deviate the plans a little bit, Georgie. Now, I don't know if they plan to move back from 67 or 68 and get like 2 extra fifths or something and leave this draft with 7 picks, or maybe acquire a future third like they did last year to get this additional third round pick from Indy this season. So those are the current picks for Denver right now. I would be shocked if the Broncos take their 2 third-round picks and move up in the draft. I just think, if anything, they are moving back, right? If they see some talented player slipping that they believe is the next big thing, the next Pro Bowler or whatever, maybe they get aggressive and move up. They've been very aggressive so far, right? They have not cut the phone lines in regards to trade talks. They have spent more money in free agency than any other team in the National Football League. So why stop now? The only pushback I have is, are they a second-round pick away from competing next season? If the answer is no, then maybe they're going to go the quantity over quality route and hope to spread their chips around a little bit and hope that 2 or 3 of those guys hit instead of putting all their eggs in one basket on just one player. Now, be the GM for me. Should the Broncos trade into round 2, right? I would say I'd rather have a second-round pick than 2 third-round picks in general, because the idea of just collecting a bunch of picks sounds great in the moment, but then you end up looking back at previous drafts and going, well, maybe we should have gone for the quality areas instead of having a bunch of mid-round picks. So that's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think down below. Now, next up, let's talk about who Denver could be looking at with pick 67 and or pick 68, because they are more or less the same when you're back-to-back. Now, in that same ESPN write-up, they sort of identified or looked at who are the Broncos looking at in round number 3. And here was the answer. Offensive lineman Luke Wypler. So it's not the most exciting bit of intel, but the Broncos are doing due diligence on the centers in this class. Lloyd Cushenberry, a third-round pick in 2020, has been inconsistent, and they want to create competition there. The problem, Denver doesn't pick until round 3. Luke Wypler out of Ohio State is a target who could make sense. I don't think the Broncos are going to go center in round number 3, Mr. Jordan Reed. I'm calling cap on this. One, the 2 positions that George Paton talked about seeing a lot of quality in the draft were edge rushers and cornerbacks. 2 positions the Broncos need help at. They signed Kyle Fuller, and Sean Payton said Lloyd Cushenberry is our starting center. Now, those 2 things do not rule out the idea of drafting a center nor do they put Lloyd Cushenberry in stone as the starting center. But when you combine both Payton's comments, right, George and Sean, about we like edge and corner in this draft, and Sean liking Cushenberry and them signing Kyle Fuller, I don't think they're going to target center with one of their 2 coveted third-round picks that they need to make the most of. Now, let's get some background information on Luke Wypler, just in case they do surprise us and go center. He measured in at the combine 6'3", 303 pounds. That's like the same as Lloyd Cushenberry. So don't look at that and think, oh, what an upgrade. He was a 2-year starter at Ohio State, originally a 4-star recruit coming from New Jersey. Now, The Athletic's Dane Brugler comes out with The Beast every year. It has more draft content than you could ever begin to consume. And he had Wypler as a 4th to 5th round grade, above average athleticism, good hand placement. He just isn't looking the part as someone who's ready to step in and be a starting NFL center. PFF last season graded him 82.4 overall, better run blocker than pass blocker, and only 1 sack allowed. Now, one very positive thing when it comes to Luke Wypler is he's a very, very intelligent football player and just human being in general. His old quarterback from Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, said, "Luke is probably one of the smartest people I have ever been around. The smartest O-lineman I've ever met in my life." So, if the Broncos believe, you know what? You've got the football IQ. If we want to sit you behind Cushenberry for this season and have you take over in 2024, maybe that's not the worst, plan of attack. I don't think that's a good strategy, though, for one of your 2 round 3 picks. Round 4, I can get behind. Now, we're going to look at some other draft targets and some other buzz on this in just a moment, but you know the deal. 2023 NFL draft hats are here, so get the official Broncos draft hat when you use our exclusive link, chatsports.com/Broncos draft. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Now, if Denver really does have their sights set on drafting a center, here are the top 5 centers in this year's draft class. John Michael Schmitz and Joe Tippmann, they are 1A, 1B, right? You can really put them either way in terms of who's better than who. Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas, he is a people mover. The guy is nasty. It's what you love to see from your offensive lineman. Luke Wypler we just looked at, and then there's Alex Forsyth from Oregon. I think he'll be a later day 3 pick. Now let's run through some of these guys here really briefly. John Michael Schmitz, he's my number 1 center in this draft class. Longtime center for the Minnesota Gophers. 92.3 overall grade last year from PFF. And then there's Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. There's something different about Big Ten centers. I feel like they just are better for the position. I can't quite put a science behind it, but Big Ten centers, farm boys who push hay for a living, give it to me. Last season, he only gave up 1 sack and a run grade of 78.3. So, moving on here to some other targets I've got. If they're not going center, which I don't think they should with one of their 2-3 third-round picks, here's who I'd like to see them go with. Cam Smith, a corner from South Carolina. Tyreek Stevenson, another cornerback out of the U. Then you got Isaiah Foskey, edge rusher from Notre Dame. Derek Hall from Auburn. Tuli Tupiloto from USC. So, to zoom in on some of these guys, let's start with Cam Smith. He's got freakish length for a cornerback, and that is something GMs drool over. He needs to work on the penalties a little bit, but this could be a hidden gem in round 2. If you get your technique down, you can't teach 6'2", but you can teach cornerbacks not to get flagged so often. Tyreek Stevenson, he can be an inside or an outside corner. The guy is physical, though. He is a wide receiver nightmare. He is going to make the opposing receiver's day a living hell for 4 quarters. 42.5% completion percentage allowed, 7 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Moving on to the edge rushers here. This is Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. 10.5 sacks, 13.5 tackles for loss. He's not a developmental pick. He's actually pretty ready to step in and compete and perform and deliver in year 1. He just got to work on being a well-rounded edge rusher and not just being a sellout for the pass. Then there's Derek Hall out of Auburn. A truly phenomenal upcoming story, upbringing, if you will. ESPN is going to lose their mind when they learn all about it. So 11.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. And then there is the Samoan from USC, Tuli Tupiloto, 46 tackles, 22 tackles for loss, 13.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 pass breakups. He is definitely one of my favorite targets for Denver in round 3. I just don't know if I can't confidently say he will get out of round 2. But if he does, this could be a Nick Bonito pick like last year where Denver had their heart set on him. They wrote his name on the draft card, and they just hoped and prayed that he would fall to them at the end of round 2 last season. So here's my question for everyone watching. What is the Broncos' biggest need right now going into this draft? Is it edge rusher? Because let's be honest, the moment Randy Gregory gets hurt, we're completely reliant on Baron Browning, which I don't hate him as an edge rusher, as a starting one, but as your number one, I'm a little worrisome, and I don't know if Nick Bonito is ready to have a larger role. Then there's cornerback, because you've got Pat Surtain. He's going to take care of 50% of the field. The other 50%, that's a bigger question. And then finally, center, as ESPN indicated as one of the Broncos' sneaky positions they will be targeting earlier in this draft. Now, make sure to subscribe if you have not already. We are your go-to Denver Broncos NFL draft channel. So when draft rumors come out, like this ESPN article, draft targets, mock drafts, whatever it may be, we keep you in the loop. So make sure to subscribe if you have not already.